Coming up on this week's episode of the Zennial Odyssey podcast.
Bobby, can I take my experience with Fight Club just for 5 minutes?
Go. When it comes to white men, the pendulum has swung, so it's now apathy and dismissiveness.
Tyler Durden is a character that was born from trauma that was set up to help Edward Norton.
Who nobody really talks about when it comes to Fight Club. It's male vulnerability.
I guess what we're asking you to do with this episode is to re-explore it yourself.
Those 80s shows, do, and it's like, you know, it's like all dark, and then they're talking, and it's just like, and welcome back,
right?
Yeah,
but like they're talking, but just moving their mouths. You
exactly.
can tell it's like faux talking, like
yeah.
Hi.
If anything gave us the insight into it, it's Anchorman. You know, yeah, it's gonna punch you right in your ovaries, right there, right in the baby maker. All right, everybody, welcome back.
Hi,
it's Bobby Rocks here with Remy.
Hi, it's me. I'm Remy. Send help.
Why send help?
I don't know. I thought it'd be a cool call-in.
Oh, I thought it was going to be sent help for what we were going to talk about today.
No, we don't need help for that.
Oh, no. Yeah, we're going to get into it deep, everybody. We're going to get it real deep here. This is just a standalone episode where we talk about the great 1999 Fight Club, a retrospective here.
And we apologize right off the jump for being two cis white males talking about Fight Club. I'm sure there's not a leniency of that anywhere, but there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there'll be a lot of mansplaining. It'll be, you know, we're mansplaining to each other men. So, you know, essentially the universe will collapse upon itself when we do that.
And I told Bob initially that, you know, my opinion was that it's very odd, almost cliche thing to breach as, like I said, as just, you know, white guys. But here's the thing is, like, I think the movie can be seen differently now. And I think a lot of subtext for what the movie was kind of like implying can be discussed more openly now. And I think that it's a weird time too, because the movie could very well be reflective of toxic masculinity, but that's only for people, in my opinion, who watch it wrong.
Yeah, I would say it is the epitome of a movie that is like on an onion. It has layers. And I know, yeah, I'm making a semi-joke, but the truth is, it's because it's such a polarizing movie, you have people who project onto it. You know, yeah, there are the themes that David Fincher took from the book that he presented in the film. There are the reviews of the film in its day, and now there's like the retrospectives that people talk about now. But the problem that I see with people talking about it now is that they just put their own spin, 2022 spin, on something that's 23 years old.
Well, I mean, but I think that as a society, sometimes it's easy to almost look at things collectively, but differently. Like, in other words, when that movie came out, nobody even discussed the term toxic masculinity.
Right.
So, but the funny subtext is, like, it's not that. It's actually a complete sort of rejection of that ideal if you truly pay attention to what it's saying, you know, and to anybody who hasn't, you know, we suggest reading the book, because Chuck Palahniuk, one of my favorite authors in the world, it's basically like a sort of meditation on masculinity.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's told via masculinity, but there's also a weird intimacy between the men in the film, you know, and that opens up another door where the movie is ultimately a metaphor for Chuck Palahniuk's own acceptance of his own homosexuality.
Yep.
When he wrote it, he was in a, you know, heterosexual relationship, and he had this feeling in him for a long time. And I remember when Fight Club came out and people said that, you know, my young brain was like, that makes too much sense, you know?
Yeah, but there's so many people that we both know that, I mean, cognitive dissonance kicked in, and they would, no, it's not. No,
of course. Yeah. Because it's about guys being guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like Chuck even came out years later, was like, no, a lot of that has to do with my closeted homosexuality.
It's a throwback to Spartacus. Come on.
No, it's Brokeback Mountain with actual guys breaking each other's backs.
Yeah.
But I think that
instead of finishing on them.
Yeah, no, that was behind the scenes. But I think even then as a society, we have to say that that's huge. Because I mean, I never had problems with homosexualities, but there are people who do, or did even, and I wonder if the exposure to that subject matter and then realizing Chuck himself came out helped them understand and accept it more.
Yeah.
In other words, if they're a fan of the guy's writing and what he does and what he says, you're not going to unbecome a fan based on who he sleeps with unless you're incredibly ignorant.
Yeah, right. And much like we talked about off the air before we came on to do the podcast, when you brought up the angle of male sexuality to it, and you started talking about it, I literally was like, oh, it's like the film book version of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, no, that's a good analogy. Yeah, it is. And it's kind of like the slow confession but what's interesting then we have to discuss, is how about the fact that does he kill that part of himself at the end? At the end of that movie, he kills the one who dresses well, kills the one who's just, come on, Brad Pitt's fabulous. He's just, he's wolf energy in that. I'm not going to use the term alpha. I don't like to because it's just a big misconception in society, but he's wolf energy in that film. And I think when Edward Norton and the character in the book, Jack, whoever, let's keep him nameless, shoots himself for Chuck at the time, who didn't embrace his homosexuality for another decade. That was him choosing to shoot that side for a bit. Yeah, Fight Club came out in the book. Came out in 96.
I believe so, 95, 96. So yeah, around the mid aughts, 2000, where he openly came out. But just so everybody knows, I mean, we've been talking for like 5 minutes, and look how much we've already peeled back already. So I feel like this is a great time to stop, just play a song, and then we come back into it, and we'll peel back even more layers.
Yeah, you know what song you have to play, right?
What's that?
With your feet on the air.
Oh, I would absolutely love to play the Pixies.
A lot of people weren't even exposed to that song before that movie. They really, unfortunately, people weren't.
And it's a shame for people from Massachusetts because that was a Massachusetts band. The Pixies, Black Francis. I mean, look where they went afterwards, but just focus on their albums. And yeah, most people are like, that's a great song. Yeah, it's a great song from their first album. But if you haven't heard their catalog before you watched Fight Club, I hope you have sense.
Wait, can I do a bit real quick?
Sure.
All right. This is so bad, and I'm really proud of it. All right. Remember James Blunt? That dude was saying, "You're beautiful."
Yeah.
Okay. James Blunt singing "Where's My Mind." Ready?
Yeah.
My feet on the air, your head on the clouds. That's all. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. You know what? You don't have to be sorry for anything, everybody. Everybody, that was Remy serenading us to the break. And as always, welcome to the Odyssey.
So to put a little form to this, Bobby, can I take my experience with Fight Club just for 5 minutes?
Go.
So I'm young. I'm not going to name the age and date myself here, but got my very first apartment. My closest friend had just unfortunately committed suicide. A lot of really terrible transitional things had happened, and I felt completely lost as a dude. I didn't know who to say that I was hurting to. I didn't know who to say that I was struggling to. And so I lived on my own. I was just kind of in this mindset and find club. Fight Club found me, which is what was going on there. And and I'm talking about the movie. I wish I could say I found the book first, but I did not. But it was profound for me because it was the first time I had heard a voice given to a directionless, seemingly cis white male. I'd never felt myself, and I know people are like, you guys were represented in everything. Yeah, but we weren't represented as broken. We weren't. We were represented as having it together. Yeah. So did I relate to Edward Norton at the beginning of the movie in terms of him having like a nice place and stuff to destroy? No. I felt like I was even more Fight Club than the characters in Fight Club. I lived in a ghetto, at the time I lived in a studio apartment, ghetto ass apartment, and so I didn't relate to that. But like my brother, I know he was older than me. I know he did. I know there were plenty who did, that they were loading their life up with things. And I did relate to it, even though I didn't relate to it financially.
It's like almost like it's the way it comes across too, and the way you phrased it. I was just sitting here thinking about it, and it's true to me, is literally, yeah, if you take the Psy white male as an archetype, it's like we've reached the pinnacle, Edward Norton's character. Yeah. But yet we've reached that pinnacle and we're empty.
Yeah,
and
no, that's the point.
Doing things to fill up the emptiness.
And think about the title. First of all, like, I'm stupid. Let's just get that out of the way. Like, I own the Tyler Durden red jacket, the red leather jacket. I own the Hawaiian shirt. And that wasn't even me like buying stuff to cosplay. That was me saying to the universe when I saw that film, okay, this is who's going to protect me now. That was when, like, because my name's Raymond. My name's been Remy since I was a child, but Remy is sort of the Eminem to Marshall Mathers. He's this character somewhat larger than life and protects me, but that was birthed unintentionally.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about that on an episode. We've talked about it off the air. I mean, like, yeah, I tell people they can call me Bobby Rocks. That's a caricature. Yeah. And much like we were saying, like, Remy is like a caricature.
Yeah, we all have our Tylers. That's the point. And like, I remember being like, oh, even my hair right now, it's purple and mohawk. It's Tyler Durden energy, and it's not intentional. It's me trying to be some kind of ghetto anarchist in my own mindset. But it was just very profound for me because, if you rewatch it, obviously the relationship between them is very homoerotic, which I don't even think I picked up on the fact that the first time you see them in the house together, Brad Pitt's in the bath and Edward Norton's pulling out his teeth in the sink like a married couple, and there's a lot of times those two spend half naked or naked.
Doesn't Edward Norton's character even make reference to that? Like they're Ozzy and Harriet?
Yeah, of course, because, but even that being normalized to the guys who were watching it, I think that helped with the issue of homoswek. I can't talk today, Bobby. Sunday energy. Homosexuality. I think that it made, because it's there, and nobody turned off the movie at that scene when they're in the bathroom. No one's like, oh, what is this gay you know what I mean? But then you realize, Tyler Durden is a character that was born from trauma, that was set up to help Edward Norton, who can't relate to that, and then it reframes the whole movie. But I think that for a disjointed generation who grew up with Nirvana music, it was Nirvana music, the movie. It was, but for me, it became kind of a safe space because I always felt so weird and not a member of society. And so I just, and David Fincher optioned the screenplay before it was even published, just from the buzz of the book. Yep. So like, Chuck came out swinging. It's funny, like a lot of people don't know, but they've made a few more Chuck movies. They can't hit it like they hit it.
No, when we were driving to meet up here, I thought of Choke.
Of course.
Yeah. And
great cast.
Yeah, great cast. And it's like,
you can't do it, though.
How did it miss the mark? Yeah.
Well, because they weren't going to go full on the sex addiction of Choke. For those who don't know, there's another Palahniuk movie that was made with Sam Rockwell and Jillian Jacobs, I think's her name, from Community. But it's amazing, like, story, but they couldn't hit it. It's because the book is so dark. Guy's a sex addict, but like meeting people in bathrooms. If people don't know, real sex addiction is nasty. It's very depraved, and they touch on it really, really well because Chuck thought he had it for a while. And I'm sure, again, that was a metaphor for his secretive homosexual encounters that he was having. But the thing about Choke is very, very graphic, very sexual, very funny, but also it's got a mind F of an ending. Like, did you ever read the book?
Sadly, no. I just watched the movie.
Yeah, don't let that stand as representation at all. I won't ruin it for anyone, but I have to say the thing about Fight Club. So Fight Club happens, and then I hear about this book that Chuck also wrote called Survivor, about a suicide cult that one man survives from. And I ended up reading the book in a day. It was one of the coolest books I've ever read in my life. And I read all of Chuck's stuff for the first decade of his career. Because it's very transformative and brave, and he really, I mean, come on, Guts. You know the short story Guts.
Yes.
There's no taboo to Chuck Palahniuk.
No.
And
there's no taboo. There's nothing sacred.
Nothing.
Everything's on the table.
Yeah, some of it's going to repulse you.
Yep.
You know, it's
But as is life, though.
Yeah.
That's a fair depiction of life.
and so not to just ramble endlessly, but I think that Fight Club made me feel better. It made me feel less alienated in that demographic. And I think it's interesting right now because that demographic right now I mean, you know, the Johnny Depp thing, there's stuff going on, but we're realizing men have been victims too.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like nobody wants to hear how straight white men feel about things anymore. You know?
I think we've reached a point in society where extremism of it. I know I've gotten on my soapbox before about extremism, but we've reached a point where when it comes to white men, the pendulum has swung. So it's now apathy and dismissiveness of legitimate things that was at the forefront of the rising of marginalized people. And so it's, you know, if a rising tide's supposed to lift all boats,
but we do have to understand, like I was saying to you in the ride up here, we are carrying the sins of our fathers now.
Yeah.
And our fathers and our grandfathers did some horrible shit and put some horrible laws in place. And there were some new horrible laws in place.
Yes.
So we can look at society and understand why it exists, but we can still be sad and feel misrepresented.
Mm-hmm.
We're fair in that. And there is a lot of widespread misandry on public forums and social media right now. And I think that regardless of which gender you aim that toward, that's incredibly dangerous. But have we earned this to an extent? I hate to say yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with you there. For me, it's like, but where do we go now? I mean, we've established this. Like,
we start podcasts and talk to each other.
I know. But this is what I would say to anybody, like Kelly. If we had intern Kelly on, I'd be like, I'm not disagreeing with anything you've said. It's all true. Yes. And I have benefited from the horrific things that white men, my ancestors or not, white men did before. But we've established that, and we're a part of trying to change that. But there's things that we need to be a part of too, because there's things that are flying under the radar. And this is, in my opinion, why I wanted to talk about a Fight Club retrospective. Yeah. It's a movie that's I mean, if we talk about the book is approaching 30 years old now, but we're talking about the movie is 23 years old and
doesn't look it or feel it.
Yes. And that's on the one hand, it's a sad thing. It's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. And that's really my takeaway. I have probably start to finish watched Fight Club, 15 times. And the first time I watched it, I was a teenager. And then there was a bulk of it where I watched it in my 20s, and then I've watched it in my 30s. And all those different decades of my life, I'm taking something else away from it.
Yeah.
One thing that has never strayed as far as a absolutely important theme, and it's one of the themes I think I talked about in the first episode, is Brad Pitt's monologue about being the middle children of history. Like, so aptly applies to us. Whether you consider Gen X or millennial, whatever.
That's the zillennial. Like, that's what makes this apropos to talk about.
And those words, our great war is a spiritual war. I do believe in that. Whether you're thinking of just religion or, because I don't view spirituality and religion as mutually exclusive. They can be the same thing, but they can
mingle.
They can mingle, or they can just be their own things.
Well, how do you think about how that aged? Let's talk about it. We have no Great War. Now we do.
Yeah.
We have, our Great Depression is our lives.
Yeah.
But it's like now we have some of the things he didn't mention.
Yep.
Like, we've had a pandemic. We're in the middle of, the Iraq war ended. Yeah, but no. You know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be us invading countries to take over their assets, and let's not go in that direction, because that's a whole nother, can of worms.
But my favorite part of that monologue that he does is at the end, where he says, and we're very, very pissed off. Because to me, that represents, in the movie, it represents the actual formal start of Fight Club, which led into Project Mayhem.
Yeah.
But it's like that. It's that starting of, like, whether it's panning to the guys in the crowd or not, like, you're seeing the nods, like, yep, That is me.
But let's say so. Okay, I'm going to blow your mind right now just because I just made this connection in my head. So it's 1999 where now Columbine has happened.
Yeah, we're pretty much 2 years away from 9/11.
Yeah, no, but check this out.
Yep.
So Columbine has happened, okay. And then you have Woodstock 99 happening, and you have a bunch of white kids ripping stuff down, starting fires, and molesting girls. Now put that in tandem with that Fight Club speech and realize how chilling it is, though.
On top of that, another underlying theme of the movie is like anti-capitalism, which I think is part of. It's not. I'm not saying that. Oh yeah, because they're anti-capitalist. That's why white men raped women at Woodstock night. I'm just saying it adds to the tension of of something that is becoming a hostile
environment. They were paying $8 for water. There too.
A basic need of survival. $8.
Yeah,
we don't even pay $8 now for water. Well, maybe we do.
No, at Coachella, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, but
the 5-star version.
Yeah, but I like that you brought up Woodstock and a parallel we can make to Fight Club, which they both came out in the same year. They both happened at the same year.
99 was crazy.
Is we see Woodstock, which was supposed to stand for like peace and love and togetherness, and by 30 years later, it stood for
suburban rage.
Yeah. Suburban rage. It stood for capitalism at all costs and just a dispassionate look at human beings.
Yeah. I mean, and like other aspects people want to talk about is like plenty of people went out there with bags and bags of dirty drugs and fake Molly and you know what I mean? So they were just, I think for me, the funny thing is that like me and my buddy had tickets to that, okay, under the guise that it was going to be the hippie renewal of the modern world and everyone was going to be smoking weed and hugging. And that was my buddy who ended up taking his life. And he took his life 2 months before Woodstock, and I'm like, I can't go now because there's just too much weight attached to it for me. And I sold the tickets, and lo and behold, like the way he was, obviously he was a sensitive soul. I was a sensitive soul. Had we been there, man, it would have been a really life-ruining experience. So I sometimes, as much as a lot of tragedies happened for me around that time, I remember hearing about Woodstock 99 directly afterward and being like, oh, dude, we would have gotten killed trying to save some girl from some group. So things happen for a reason. But that's what I'm saying about Fight Club's timing. It was an incredibly transitional time for America.
How many movies can say they were a zeitgeist? And then here we are 23 years later still talking about its relevance.
A lot of movies in 99, though. Seven, American Beauty, like... There was a run in 99 of films that were just profound.
Right there on the turn of the century, too.
Yeah, and that's was it. And a lot of people thought, Y2K and stuff. Little did we know 20 years later, Y2K would be laughing at that. The threat's much more real. Well,
I worked in a supermarket at the time, so I remember everyone buying as many gallons of water as they could. Yeah.
They didn't even know that stuff comes out of taps for free. But for me, it kept me kind of sane. Long story short, it kept me sane. And I think that, but I want to say something too, and because we addressed this in the car, and I don't want to forget this, but I say, like Bob, when you said I've seen it 15 times or so. Now let's refill this room right now with the demographic of equal men and women, all races. How do you think? Be honest, because I have a feeling about this, but I want to know what you think. Bobby, who I don't know if you've seen him, he looks like a football player. Compliment, great looking guy.
I look like something that I'm actually not. Like it's like that.
Me and Bobby both look like we'd beat you up. That's the long and short story. We're the nicest people in the world.
Yep. Doesn't mean I can't. It just means I don't.
Yeah, it's not really something he chooses. Yeah. But now a guy looking like Bobby, bald head, beard, good shape, blah, 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 saying I've seen it 15 times. How does the room read that?
As a stereotypical, prototypical, toxic Psy man.
Yeah. Do they immediately think you like violence?
Yep.
You don't hold women in high regard? That's my problem. Because I told Bob, he's like, do you want to talk about Fight Club? And I'm like, we should, because I'm nervous to. Because I think people have a very inaccurate perception of that film. First of all, it's not about men fighting. There's like 3 fights in the movie. It's about men's mental health.
Yep.
That's 100%. I've never seen it represented. So I think people take it wrong. They think it's aggro when it's not, because there's a point even when Tyler's like, what the fuck are we doing? A dude just got killed. What are we doing?
Oh, such a movie.
Robert Paulson.
A movie full of great scenes and quotes. And there's another one. Yeah.
And the guy they shame for having the bitch titties gets the most heroic ending in the movie, and he gets chanted on.
In Project Mayhem, we have no names.
Yeah.
But in Death, we all have a name.
His name was
Robert Paulson.
Yeah. But people don't understand that it's about men grieving. It's about men fighting against what they're taught to do, which is buy and conform. It's about men not letting their bosses push them around.
How about the fact of the whole catalyst for this is he goes to his doctor because he's having insomnia, and his doctor recommends him to go to these like the cancer groups for
that could
men
have been
to show real suffering.
And he falls in love with the grief and the tension.
Yeah, which is fucked up, but because on the surface, what it showed there, which I loved, and this is something that nobody really talks about when it comes to Fight Club, that's male vulnerability.
100%.
In there. And like, not just Robert Paulson, but the other man who said, like, you know, because he can't have children because of his testicular cancer, and his wife divorced him and got remarried.
Sobbing.
Yeah, and he's just broken in that moment. He's absolutely broken.
What is it really? Edward Norton getting held by a woman. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's Meatloaf, but no, it's not Meatloaf. Yep. The whole thing in that, and people make jokes.
It's a surrogate mom.
Yeah, the bitch tits became pillows for him. And as much as people joked about that, that's why he was so shook by that character's death too, because that was his kind of mother in a way. You know, he was the matriarch patriarch. And that, by the way, that was Chuck Palahniuk doing that thing again. Mm-hmm. That was a transgender thing, whether or not he wants to say it, and that's fine.
If he doesn't want to, just own the fact that you are the trendsetter of trendsetters.
Yeah, no,
Chuck.
he was. Yeah. But I mean, you got to remember that was mother's milk, those scenes. And if you look at as much as it was sociopathic for him to be in the meetings, my boy just needed a hug. Yeah. You know how many people, you know how sad I've been? I get it, dude. Lately, things have been hard for me. You get it. You see it. And so I ask that people who've watched it or who haven't, just watch it differently. It's not a violent movie. It's a movie about dudes who are marginalized.
Yep.
Being like, oh my God, we all want to die.
Yep. And then ultimately it culminates in the end with liberation.
Yeah. And we have to understand too, with the idea that he finds in the sickest way domesticated bliss with her, his arms over her.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's the image. And can we talk about the pre 9/11 imagery, Bobby?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bro, it is so chilling to even watch it. I think somebody did a side by side just because that's what YouTube does. But I mean, it blows up right in the middle, goes down the same way because it was all Planet Dynamite. But we're not going to talk about that because this is an Alex Jones documentary. Yep. No, we're just playing around, guys. Have your own opinion about things. We don't push one thing one way or another. Nope. But my point is it's chill-inducing how much they predicted. The aggro male becoming more sensitive, check. More and more seemingly heterosexual males actually seeking intimacy and comfort with other men, check. A subtext of homosexuality, check. Yeah, it's all there. Yep. A rejection of the 9-to-5 work aesthetic. How many guys are working from home for themselves now? Yep. It's all there.
Absolute check. It checks all the boxes. And one thing that we talked about off the air when we were coming up here to do the episode is we talked about in the modern times how the modern like teenage early 20s male is looking at that movie.
Yeah.
And that is a problem. I'll come right out and say that's a problem.
Yeah.
They're not seeing it for what it was intended for. And that happens. Time everything is at the mercy of time. I do agree with that.
Soft boys are not understanding that they're not getting the message and they're part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And what these people do who are already ready to be radicalized is they see it as a way to radicalize. And if we speak of zeitgeist, let's look at the Trump presidency. And I'm not going to go into whether you liked him or not, but what he did is my takeaway from his presidency is that he ran on a platform. By the way, he ran on Reagan's platform from 1980, like literally ripped him off. But, let's get America back to the good old days. And what happened is there were radical people who said, yeah, let's get back to racism and misogyny.
Yeah, this means shooting people with gun stocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and here's the thing.
And we're still kind of, even though he's not in office right now, we're still coming out of that mindset.
So let me ask you a question,
sure,
Bobby, and answer it honestly. Okay, because me and Bob discussed this, and I think we agreed, but I'm curious to see what he's going to say. My big fear being that it's a movie I deeply appreciate and admire. Do you think that movie speaks to the MAGA hats now?
I think they feel like it does, but it doesn't.
No, I'm not telling you, do you think it does? We know it doesn't, but my fear is that it 100% does. Is that they look at that movie as just...
Exactly. They see it and they use it to galvanize themselves, get themselves like, we're taking it back. And
it's like the Turner Diaries put on film to them.
Yeah. Like they see that and they go, yeah, I felt fragile. And instead of having a conversation or maybe collectively like, hey, like I want to talk about my fragility and how I cannot feel like the anxiety that comes along with that.
They picked up their guns.
Exactly. Yeah. Reaction formation. I can't be fragile. I can't be weak. I have to be the strong male.
Because that's what I'm like, Bob, I don't want this episode to appeal to one audience. Let's put it that way. And that's my fear. I think Fight Club is a widely misinterpreted song at this point.
I think, listen, we're 23 years on and it's been misinterpreted for 23 years.
But like, I was like shook, like I got it, you know, and it sounds so corny, but some people did. And for me, it was like, yeah, it was awe for me because I'd never, and then I got to say further on, and I'm so sorry to say this, because I will not watch Kevin Spacey's films now because I don't even like bringing it up, but you had Fight Club capturing the pathos of the young man and American Beauty months later capturing the pathos of the older man.
And what's beautiful more so with American Beauty, it's extremely subtle in Fight Club, is the element of satire. There's elements of satire in both, but it's more in your face in American Beauty. It's there. There's an element of satire, and some people that rubs people the wrong way.
I've always made fun of
the best way to get certain messages across is through satire.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I'm from the school that art should make us all a little uncomfortable sometimes, you know. But yeah, my worry now is that is that even talking about Fight Club is that the world's cooking a stew and just focusing on the wrong flavors when it comes to that, you know. And this isn't everybody. This isn't a blanket statement. There's some beautiful essays on it. There's some there are professors who teach subjects on it. It's a profound piece of work. But I guess what we're asking you to do with this episode is to re-explore it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, try to re-explore it because it's not
it's a movie that's about, when I say liberation, we could take liberation on so many different levels. If we take the book, essentially the book is, for Chuck, was liberating him about his, obviously, because for people who don't know, and Remy and I talked about this again, every single thing that Chuck has written is very personal. He's writing from a personal standpoint. So you could take it as that's him using these caricatures and characters to talk about his personal struggles.
Yeah.
And at the end, when it's liberated, he feels a little liberated, or he got catharsis from that. So let's look at this from this standpoint. If you're going to look at it with an open mind. Well, I know that's easier said than done because I feel people have a hard time now looking at things with open minds.
This is what I say with all art. Try to just go at it blind. Don't go at it with prepackaged feelings about what you've been told to feel or expect, you know? And this isn't even necessarily a go watch Fight Club podcast. It's just us. All right. The world is focused on toxic masculinity. And I get it, you know? Especially post-Trump, I get it.
And one point I was kind of getting to about it now is nowadays it's looked at and you see a lot of critics toxic masculinity tag to it. Like,
and I think here's my take that makes that so damning. Because remember Rosie O'Donnell went after the film when it came out too, and it's just sit down and shut up. We didn't make it for you. But I don't think the movie reflects toxic masculinity at all. And this is going to be my final thing I can say about this because I can't get it better than this. But I think that movie for the first time captures fragile masculinity.
Yes, it does.
And it opened the doors for all of us to be like, hey, like you could play it for your friends and then look at them. And you could tell your friends who got it or your friends who just liked it.
Yep.
And then your friends who got it, you'd be like, all right, so you know, like when he blew up his apartment to fight the idea of consumerism, like how did you feel about that? And it's like you look at each other's eyes and it's like, God, I wish, you know?
Yeah.
And so there are people who connected with it deeply, and then that opened the discourse for people like us to be like, oh. And I remember at the time too, right after that, I got in a super toxic relationship. And you know, I remember being able to talk to people about some of my male friends about that because we had talked about deep shit because of Fight Club. So yeah, we just, you know, I think it's just a matter of two dudes paying homage to something that really helped them.
Yes. And two of us still talking about something that's still relevant to them years later and still find it relevant to our modern times that we find ourselves in. I think it's a good time to jump off from here just because, I mean, I feel like we could go on and on and on and on and on. So we will jump off with that. And as always, everybody, if you have any feedback.
Oh, wait, one more.
Yeah.
Read all his books. Honestly, the guy's got some remarkable books. Read Survivor, probably the greatest book I ever read in my life. Read Snuff, read Damned, read
Lullaby.
Yes.
Lullaby. So for anybody, I'll just go on my little bit.
Of course.
So Lullaby is the first book I read by him. And if you want to hear the backstory, all of this is true. To me, it's just holy fuck. Chuck Palahniuk's father was in a relationship with a woman who was she still married or just estranged from a very toxic and abusive husband.
And let me do an addendum at the end.
Okay. All right. So, and I'm going to speed it up now. Long story short, this guy, whether he was in jail or not, he finds them and he murdered them. He murdered Chuck's father and his girlfriend at the time. So,
you know how?
I just know very brutally. And
bro, he in their driveway lit them on fire. And it's like, and please continue, but let me cut off. So when that happened 3 years after my best friend burned himself alive. And so there was this weird thing with Chuck's writing where I always felt deeply connected to it. Because it was like, you know, I can't imagine the loss on that. But so continue.
So the man goes to trial. He's obviously found guilty. And I believe the judge approaches Chuck and he says to him, I want to explain to you all the decisions that can be made. He could go to jail for life. He could be put to death. I want your thoughts so I can proceed accordingly. And so Chuck is sitting there debating this, still grieving the loss of his father. And he's asked to put the life of a human being in his hands. It's a human being he has every right to hate, by the way. But there's still that part of him, moralistically speaking, that's like, I don't know how I feel like that. But you know how I'm going to go to my strength and I'm going to write a book about it. And that's what he did. He wrote a book that's essentially, and I'm just simplifying for the sake of time. These people find this lullaby, and if you were to say it out loud, if people around you hear it, they die.
Yeah, and I mean, I know people right now are like, what? That sounds amazing. Yeah, it is amazing.
Yep.
It's called The Culling Tale, and there's some interesting African history about it too. He always just puts some stuff in there. But keep in mind, guys, whenever we talk about a Chuck book, they are shocking.
Yep.
Like, listen, Fight Club was as non-shocking as Chuck Palahniuk has ever gotten. He has written passages and stories that have made people vomit and pass out. That's not a joke. At public readings, it's happened to him multiple times. So understand that there'll be parts of Lullaby that will jaw you. But, you know, think about Lullaby in terms of the laws being passed right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point.
Singing a lullaby to your loved ones as opposed to, you know, but that was him coming to terms with the death of his father.
Yep. And also kind of rationalizing in his own mind the fact that somebody had put somebody else's life in his hands, the fate of their life in his hands.
And there's a literal scene with a life in someone's hands in that book. And it's like, guys, you're just
a metaphor of metaphors. And
you're not prepared for that scene. There are moments when you read him and you have to put a book down, not because like you don't want to keep reading it, because you need to sit with the moment that just happened.
You have to, exactly. You have to sit with it and realize that if you're going to look for and want to experience and appreciate the best things of life, you know, the light, you have to do the same thing to the dark.
Oh yeah, and the best thing about Lullaby, so it becomes a road trip movie essentially. Where they're going around trying to get all the copies, right?
Yep.
To make sure that people aren't basically unintentional. Because who do you sing a lullaby to?
Children.
Yeah. So it's heavy shit, you know? But it becomes this, and you have to understand about Chuck too, there's humor in it. There's always humor in the darkest parts. You know, even the part that we find the most disturbing, there's a chance someone could be like, that's the funniest shit I've ever heard. So, sorry, but we're just saying if we're praising Club, we love Fincher. He's a god. Palahniuk wrote it, and he's written so many other great books. And listen, get a book on tape if you have to, and listen to it on the way to work. But Invisible Monster is another one that's just unreal. But we should let you guys go.
Yeah. We've given you guys enough heavy and enough content for one episode. So as always, everybody, thank you for tuning in. But this Odyssey has come to a conclusion. And until next time, take care.